Have you recited the Lord's Prayer thousands of times? But did you know you're pronouncing a sequence of vibrational codes capable of completely transforming your reality? What the Church never told you is that this isn't just a simple prayer. It's a millennial consciousness technology designed to awaken entire dimensions of your being that remain dormant. While many mechanically repeat these words, initiates in the Gnostic mysteries have always known that each syllable is a vibrational key that resonates with specific points of your energy field. Think about it. If water changes its molecular structure when exposed to certain words, imagine what happens inside your body, which is 70% water, when you pronounce this code with full consciousness and intention. Science now confirms what Jesus tried to show us 2,000 years ago. We are literally programming the matrix of reality with our words. Want to discover how to access this power that has always been within your reach? Keep watching. Just imagine that prayer many have recited since childhood, repeated in moments of distress or gratitude, carries with it much more than simple words of supplication. The Lord's Prayer transcends its appearance as a common prayer and reveals itself as a true energy portal, capable of profoundly transforming those who pronounce it with full consciousness. This understanding isn't new to seekers of true spirituality. As in the oldest Gnostic traditions, it was already understood that certain word combinations function as vibrational keys to higher dimensions of consciousness. When we observe the structure of this prayer in the light of esoteric knowledge, we realize that each phrase was meticulously crafted to create a specific frequency, something that resonates with the fundamental principles of the law of one. Wow, it's fascinating to see how this millennial teaching already pointed to the fundamental unity of all existence. It's as if Jesus, in his infinite wisdom, had encoded in the verses of the Lord's Prayer an illumination technology accessible to all, regardless of their level of spiritual development. In practice, this means that even those who don't yet possess deep knowledge of the occult mysteries can, through the conscious repetition of this prayer, initiate their process of consciousness awakening. To understand this phenomenon, it's helpful to think of the words of the Lord's Prayer as a map that guides the individual through different states of being. When pronouncing Our Father who art in heaven, for example, we immediately recognize the existence of a universal source of energy from which we all emanate, the same infinite consciousness described in the law of one. This initial recognition, when done with true intention, already begins to open channels in our perception that normally remain closed in the mind, conditioned by materialism. Try reciting this initial part, genuinely focusing on the profound meaning of having a common source for all creation, to observe how your perception changes, as if something expands within your chest. Christian mysticism and Gnosticism have always known that this sacred text operated on multiple levels, but few had the courage to explore its deeper layers. After all, it's easier to keep the masses repeating words out of habit than encouraging them to use spiritual tools for their own awakening. However, the true seeker realizes that when reciting the Lord's Prayer with full presence and understanding of the vibratory power of words, something extraordinary begins to happen. The membrane between the visible and the invisible becomes thinner, allowing energy exchanges that recalibrate the entire mind-body-spirit system. A powerful exercise is to recite the entire prayer just once, but dedicating about a minute to deeply contemplate the meaning of each phrase before moving on to the next. Many report revealing experiences with this simple practice, from profound insights to physical sensations of warmth or tingling in the hands and crown of the head. The most surprising thing is that this knowledge isn't restricted to enlightened circles or reserved for a few initiates. The beauty of the law of one is precisely its universality. We are all one. We all have access to the same tools of inner transformation. The Lord's Prayer, in this sense, represents a democratic consciousness technology, which can be accessed by anyone willing to go beyond mechanical repetition. All it takes is a sincere heart and an open mind for the doors to begin to open. And isn't that the essence of the true spiritual path? Weren't these the lessons that great masters like Jesus tried to convey to us? The true revolution isn't in external rituals or complex intellectual knowledge, but in the internal transformation that occurs when we open ourselves to more subtle dimensions of reality. And who knows, perhaps this is just the first step to understanding how sound and words can shape not only our individual experience, but the entire web of shared reality. Have you noticed how some words seem to carry more weight than others? How certain sounds can make your skin tingle or provoke almost physical sensations? It's no coincidence. Since the most remote times, the deepest spiritual traditions have understood that sound is a creative force par excellence. What ancient Gnostic masters already intuited, modern science is beginning to confirm. We live in a vibrational universe where everything, from subatomic particles to entire galaxies, exists in a state of constant vibration. Jesus himself, in his more esoteric teachings, spoke about the power of the verb, of the word that creates and transforms reality. In the beginning was the Word, says the Gospel of John, a statement that perfectly resonates with the law of one's understanding of the fundamentally energetic and vibrational nature of all existence. When we recite the Lord's Prayer with true intention and presence, we aren't just repeating words. We're literally generating sound patterns that interact with the energy fields around and within us. It's as if each syllable were a musical note in a cosmic symphony, carefully arranged to create harmonies that elevate our vibrational frequency. The ancient alchemists knew this and compared certain prayers and mantras to alchemical formulas, capable of transforming the raw material of human consciousness into spiritual gold. Wow, it's impressive to think that something apparently as simple as a prayer could function as an awakening technology. But it makes complete sense when we understand that sound organized in specific patterns can reorganize the very structure of matter, something that experiments with cymatics, the study of patterns generated by sound waves, have visually demonstrated. To better understand this phenomenon, we can do a small practical experiment. Try reciting just one line of the Lord's Prayer like, "Thy kingdom come," repeatedly for a few minutes, feeling each word resonate not only in your mouth and throat, but throughout your entire body. Many people report a gradual change in their state of consciousness, a sensation of expansion or warmth in the chest. This happens because the sound vibrations emitted during recitation interact with our own energy fields, stimulating specific energy centers, what some traditions call chakras. The conscious repetition of these words creates what we might call a morphogenetic field, favorable to spiritual awakening, aligning perfectly with the law of one's understanding that consciousness is a unified field that can be modulated by intention and vibration. Other traditions use similar techniques, such as Hindu mantras or Sufi zikrs, all based on the same universal principle of the transformative power of sound. There's a reason why mysticism from various cultures has always given so much importance to chants, intonations, and recitations. Sounds aren't just means of communication, they're tools for transforming consciousness. When we understand this, the Lord's Prayer ceases to be a simple prayer and reveals itself as an instrument of illumination, a way to tune our own frequency with higher vibrations of the universal energy field. Recent studies on the effect of words and intentions on the molecular structure of water, like Dr. Masaru Emoto's famous experiments, offer clues about how this process might work at a physical level. Considering that our bodies are mostly composed of water, it makes sense that certain vibratory patterns could reconfigure our own molecular structure, creating ideal conditions for the awakening of consciousness. An interesting exercise is to recite the Lord's Prayer, while visualizing each word forming harmonious geometric patterns within you, as if the sound vibrations were literally reorganizing your internal structure into more harmonious configurations. True gnosis, the direct and experiential knowledge of reality, often occurs when we reach vibratory states that allow us to perceive beyond the five senses. It's as if there were a threshold, a certain frequency that, once reached, allows us to access hidden dimensions of existence. Esoteric traditions have always known this, and many spiritual practices were specifically developed to elevate our vibrational frequency. The Lord's Prayer, viewed from this perspective, is one of these tools, a sequence of sound vibrations meticulously arranged to assist us in this elevation. Wow, when we think about it, even the act of going to church to recite prayers in a group takes on a new meaning. It's a collective energy work, where dozens or hundreds of people generate a unified vibrational field with transformative potential. This understanding allows us to reclaim the original power of practices that, for many, have become mere empty rituals. And the most incredible thing is that this power is available at any moment, requiring only our conscious intention and the deep understanding that words are, in their essence, vehicles of energy that can transport our consciousness to new levels of perception and understanding of the one reality that underlies all apparently separate existence. For a long time, science and spirituality walked separate paths, as if they were irreconcilable realms of human knowledge. On one side, objectivity and scientific materialism; on the other, subjectivity and spiritual transcendence. But look, in recent decades, something fascinating has been happening. Discoveries in quantum physics have begun to challenge the mechanistic view of the universe, suggesting a reality much closer to that described by ancient mystics. Isn't it amazing that Gnostic teachings that seemed so abstract now find impressive parallels in the most advanced scientific theories? When Jesus spoke in terms that suggested the interconnection of all things, he was expressing, in language accessible to his time, principles that only now we are beginning to formulate mathematically through unified field theory. The law of one, in its essence, proposes that all existence is a single consciousness that expresses itself in infinite variations while maintaining its fundamental indivisible nature. Curiously, this principle deeply resonates with the concept of quantum entanglement, in which particles that have interacted continue to be connected regardless of the physical distance between them. Similarly, when we consciously repeat the Lord's Prayer, we're potentially creating a vibrational pattern that connects and resonates with the unified field of consciousness. It's not a magical or supernatural process. It's a natural phenomenon that operates according to universal laws that we're just beginning to understand scientifically. The theory of morphogenetic fields, proposed by biologist Rupert Sheldrake, suggests that repeated patterns of thought and behavior create information fields that facilitate the recurrence of these same patterns. Imagine applying this concept to spiritual practices. Each time someone recites the Lord's Prayer with full awareness, they would be strengthening a morphogenetic field that facilitates spiritual awakening for all others who perform the same practice. To experience this connection between science and spirituality firsthand, try the following exercise. Before reciting the Lord's Prayer, take a few moments to visualize yourself as an inseparable part of a universal field of energy and information. Feel connected to all people who have recited this prayer throughout the centuries, as if you were accessing a cosmic network of shared consciousness. Notice how this shift in perspective, from an isolated I to an interconnected we, radically transforms the prayer experience. Many practitioners report extraordinary sensations, as if they were simultaneously in their individual bodies and dispersed in a larger field of consciousness. This altered state isn't an illusion or fantasy. It can be understood as a direct perception of the interconnected nature of reality, something that quantum physics has suggested through the principle of non-locality. Gnosticism has always proposed that true knowledge comes from direct experience, not blind acceptance of dogmas, a surprisingly scientific approach in its essence. The bridge between science and mysticism becomes even more fascinating when we consider studies on the neurological effects of meditation and repetitive prayer. Research using electroencephalograms demonstrates that certain spiritual practices induce brain states characterized by synchronized theta and gamma waves, patterns associated with experiences of unity, transcendence, and illumination. It's as if these practices literally tune our brains to frequencies that facilitate access to expanded states of consciousness. When we recite the Lord's Prayer repeatedly, with full attention and conscious intention, we can induce similar alterations in our brain activity. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself in response to repeated experiences, explains how consistent spiritual practices can literally rewire our brain to make it more receptive to experiences of unity and transcendence. An interesting experiment is to recite the Lord's Prayer daily for 21 consecutive days. always at the same time and with full mental presence, observing the subtle changes in your perception of reality. Many people notice a growing sense of interconnection with others and with the natural world, an indicator that the artificial barriers between self and not self are beginning to dissolve. The awakening of consciousness, when viewed through this integrative lens between science and spirituality, ceases to be a nebulous concept to become a natural process of expanding perception beyond the limits imposed by the conditioned mind. Esoteric traditions have always known that certain techniques can catalyze this process, the Lord's Prayer being one of them. And now science is beginning to offer explanatory models for these phenomena that previously seemed to belong exclusively to the domain of faith. What is emerging from this dialogue between apparently distinct fields of knowledge is nothing less than a new understanding of reality, a unified vision that honors both scientific objectivity and the depth of spiritual experience. No wonder so many quantum physicists develop fascination with Eastern and Western mystical traditions. They're recognizing, through their own discoveries, that the universe is fundamentally interconnected, conscious, and relational, precisely what the law of one and Gnostic teachings have affirmed for millennia. And as we advance in this integrated understanding of reality, we begin to realize that the symbolic and archetypal dimensions of existence are no less real or important than the quantitatively measurable dimensions. In fact, they may be portals to deeper layers of reality waiting to be explored. Behind the curtains of visible reality, there exists an entire world of symbolic meanings waiting to be discovered by those who have eyes to see. Esoteric traditions have always known that the universe communicates through symbols, and that symbolic language is, in many cases, the only one capable of expressing transcendent truths that escape linear logic. The Lord's Prayer, when examined through this lens, reveals itself as a treasure of interconnected symbolisms, each phrase corresponding to a universal archetype that resonates with the deepest structures of human consciousness. It's impressive how an apparently simple text can contain so many layers of meaning. In the oldest Gnostic circles, this prayer was seen as a complete map of the soul's journey, from the initial recognition of the divine source, our Father who art in heaven, to the final liberation from dualistic illusions. Deliver us from evil. Each phrase of the Lord's Prayer can be associated not only with abstract concepts, but also with specific geometric forms that, when visualized during recitation, tremendously amplify its transformative power. For example, the opening, Our Father who art in heaven, corresponds to the circle, universal symbol of totality, unity, and the eternal. When reciting this line, try visualizing a perfect circle of golden light surrounding your head and gradually expanding to include your entire body. Many practitioners report that this simple visualization dramatically intensifies the experience, creating a tangible sensation of connection with the whole. This approach is perfectly aligned with the law of one, which recognizes that sacred geometry is a visual expression of the universal laws that structure all existence. Ancient initiation temples, from Egyptians to Mayans, used specific geometric proportions precisely because they understood that certain forms facilitate the flow of energy and information between dimensions of consciousness. What the occult mysteries have always known is that our three-dimensional reality is just the tip of the iceberg, a subset of a multidimensional multiverse that can be accessed through appropriate symbolic tools. The phrase, "Thy kingdom come," corresponds to the equilateral triangle, symbol of the divine manifesting in three-dimensional existence. When we visualize a triangle of light descending from higher realms, while pronouncing these words, we're essentially creating an energy portal for higher qualities of consciousness to manifest in our everyday experience. This isn't mere fanciful visualization. It's a practical application of the Hermetic principle, as above, so below, recognizing that patterns of the macrocosm can be invoked in the microcosm through focused intention and appropriate symbolism. The beauty of this approach is that it doesn't require years of esoteric training. Anyone with a sincere desire to awaken can begin to explore these symbolic dimensions of the Lord's Prayer. Try reciting the complete prayer, visualizing a different, geometric form for each line. observing how this practice affects your experience. Many discover that over time, these visualizations become more vivid and detailed spontaneously, as if consciousness itself were revealing deeper layers of meaning with each practice. Gnosticism has always emphasized that true spiritual awakening occurs through direct understanding of the symbols and archetypes that structure both the cosmos and the human psyche. When Jesus taught through parables, he was using precisely this principle, communicating multidimensional truths through symbolic narratives that can be interpreted on multiple levels simultaneously. Similarly, the Lord's Prayer can be understood as a condensed parable, each phrase containing a universe of meanings that unfold as our consciousness expands. The phrase, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven," for example, geometrically corresponds to the six-pointed star, the famous Seal of Solomon or Star of David, representing the perfect integration between celestial and terrestrial principles. Visualizing this form while reciting this specific line can catalyze profound experiences of integration between seemingly opposite aspects of our nature. At the center of this practice is the recognition, so central to the law of 1, that the apparent divisions and polarities of existence are illusory. At the most fundamental level, everything is an expression of a single infinite consciousness, exploring its possibilities through form and experience. The deepest layers of meaning of the Lord's Prayer remain inaccessible until we are willing to go beyond purely intellectual understanding and enter the realm of direct experience through consistent practice. Esoteric knowledge has always been considered occult, not because it was deliberately hidden, but because it can only be truly understood through illuminating experience, the famous gnosis that gives Gnosticism its name. It's fascinating how spiritual traditions from around the world have developed symbolic tools to facilitate this direct experience. Tibetan mandalas, Hindu yantras, Sufi calligraphy, all operating according to the same principle. The appropriate symbol, contemplated with focused intention, can reconfigure our consciousness and open doors to more subtle dimensions of reality. The Lord's Prayer, viewed from this perspective, is an awakening technology disguised as a simple prayer, a vehicle of transformation that has gone unnoticed by being hidden in plain sight. And perhaps that's the most extraordinary aspect of this whole matter. The tools for the awakening of consciousness have always been within our reach, incorporated into the traditions we've received, just waiting for us to recognize them for what they truly are. Maps for navigating the inner dimensions of being, where separation is transcended and the fundamental unity with all existence is directly experienced. What if the same words you've been repeating since childhood contained the power to awaken entire dimensions of consciousness that remain dormant within you? What if, to access this extraordinary potential, all it took was simply a change in the way you pronounce them? What we're discussing here isn't just an academic reinterpretation of a religious text, but an urgent invitation to a direct transformative experience. The Lord's Prayer, when understood and practiced in the light of esoteric knowledge, becomes a call to awaken from the collective dream of separation and recognize our true nature as individualized expressions of an infinite consciousness. As a true Gnostic would say, the door is right in front of you. You just need to realize it exists and then gather the courage to walk through it. The awakening of consciousness isn't a single dramatic event for most people. It's a progressive journey of expanding perception and dissolving the illusions that keep us trapped in a limited view of reality. Each time we recite the Lord's Prayer with full presence and understanding of its deeper levels, we're essentially taking a small step in this journey. It's like gradually cleaning the dust off a mirror. The more we practice, the more clearly we can see our true nature reflected. The Law of One describes this process as a harvest or transition of consciousness in which we move from one vibratory density to a higher one. The fascinating thing is that tools like the Lord's Prayer can function as accelerators of this natural process, allowing us to experience glimpses of higher states of consciousness even before we've fully completed the transition. Want a practical example? Try this exercise. For a whole week, dedicate 15 minutes daily to reciting the Lord's Prayer, not as a routine prayer, but as a deep meditation. Pronounce each word slowly, savoring its meaning, allowing each phrase to resonate not just in your ears, but throughout your entire being. Many people report that, after just a few days of this practice, they begin to notice subtle changes in their perception, more vivid colors, greater sensitivity to others' emotions, spontaneous moments of deep peace that arise during everyday activities. The tragedy of our time is that we're surrounded by powerful tools of spiritual transformation, but we reduce them to mechanical rituals emptied of meaning. How many millions of people recite the Lord's Prayer daily without ever suspecting the energy portal they could be opening within themselves? It's like owning a vehicle capable of flying, but using it only to travel roads, a self-imposed limitation based on ignorance of its true potential. Christian mysticism has always known that Jesus' words contained multiple layers of meaning, accessible according to the listener's level of spiritual development. In Gnosticism, this was expressed by the concept of exoteric knowledge, public, accessible to all, and esoteric knowledge, internal, reserved for those with greater spiritual maturity. Today, with the collapse of traditional religious hierarchies and the democratization of spiritual knowledge, these esoteric tools are finally becoming available to all sincere seekers. What a fantastic time to be alive! A powerful exercise to intensify this experience is to combine the recitation of the Lord's Prayer with conscious breathing. Inhale deeply before each line, hold your breath while reciting the phrase, and exhale slowly after completing it. This synchronization between word and breath creates a powerful anchor to keep the mind focused on the present, dramatically intensifying the energetic impact of the practice. What we're really inviting each person to do is to transform an automatic recitation into a conscious exploration. The difference is as vast as between reading about love and experiencing it directly. When Jesus taught the Lord's Prayer, he wasn't merely providing a script for mechanical repetition, but offering a map for the inner journey of reunification with the divine source. In the language of the Law of One, we could say that this prayer is a catalyst to facilitate the positive polarization of consciousness, the process by which we become progressively more oriented toward service to others, toward unconditional love and unity. The surprising thing is that we don't need to abandon our religious traditions to access this transformative potential. We just need to rediscover the deeper dimensions that have always been present in them. For many, this rediscovery comes as a liberating revelation. I don't need to reject my spiritual heritage to experience awakening. I just need to understand it at a deeper level. A simple but powerful exercise is to recite the Lord's Prayer while focusing your attention on different energy centers of the body, what some traditions call chakras, moving from the lowest to the highest as you progress through the lines of the prayer. Many practitioners report tangible sensations of energy moving through the body during this exercise, sometimes accompanied by profound insights or emotional releases. The invitation to awaken through this millennial practice isn't just individual but also collective. Imagine the transformative power if groups of people began to recite the Lord's Prayer together, not as an empty ritual, but as a conscious practice of vibratory elevation. According to the Law of One, when individual consciousnesses align in common purpose and intention, the effect is multiplicative, not just additive. Each person who engages in this practice with full awareness not only benefits themselves, but contributes to the elevation of the collective field of consciousness. It's like lighting a candle. Its light not only illuminates the immediate environment, but allows other candles to be lit from it. This is perhaps the most inspiring aspect of this exploration. As we awaken to the deeper dimensions of our own being through tools like the Lord's Prayer, we naturally become catalysts for the awakening of others, not through proselytism or imposition of beliefs, but through the natural radiance that emanates from a consciousness in the process of illumination. Our mere presence becomes a silent invitation for others to awaken to their own higher possibilities. And as we contemplate the profound symbolism of these ancient words, we can begin to perceive that there are countless other tools waiting to be rediscovered in our spiritual traditions, each offering its own unique path to the direct experience. of the fundamental unity that quantum physics, mystical traditions, and human intuition itself whisper to us, is the true nature of reality. And there it is, the secret that few know about the most recited prayer in the world. The Lord's Prayer isn't just a set of beautiful words, but a true portal to higher dimensions of consciousness that has been hidden right before our eyes all this time. Amazing, isn't it? What will you do with this knowledge now? Will you continue repeating mechanically, or will you start using this powerful energy tool to transform your life from the inside out? Imagine if every time you recited these sacred words, you were consciously activating vibrational codes in your energy field. Spiritual awakening isn't for a chosen few. It's your birthright. Jesus didn't bring this code to be kept in temples or reserved for an elite. He shared it so that everyone could access its transformative power. It's time to reclaim that inheritance. If this knowledge resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone who needs to awaken to their divine potential. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more revelations that will expand your consciousness and transform your reality. The path of Gnosis is just beginning.